This is the Testosterone Podcast with Noel, Keith, and Steve. Take it away, dudes.
And welcome back. We're going to call this episode 22 and a half, continuing on with our buddy Todd, overseas in the military in the Army in Germany. Germany, I tell you what, beautiful country over there. You said this is your second time to be there, right?
Yeah.
And I think we were talking. My wife and I has an opportunity in December. We're gonna run up there, and so I'm looking for. Hopefully, we can meet up. That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
So. But tell us what are some other places? What are some of the other places that you've been? What are the ones that you have stood out to you? And obviously, this is military service. I know it, but you have to enjoy where you go, right? So, what are some of the other places that you've been that you really loved and would love to go back to see? And because I know you said you loved Germany, tell us a little bit about the things that you love about it. Obviously, you just told us before we recorded how much you love the Autobahn.
Yeah.
but tell us a little bit about what makes this place special to you, and then other places that you really enjoy.
So I think that's an important part about being in the military, or really anything in life, is you have to try to find a way to enjoy whatever it is you're doing and wherever you are. Because I'll tell you, in the Army, we have some real armpits of places to live. You could live in Fort Polk, Louisiana. I know we were talking earlier about how much Louisiana is wonderful and a great place to be. Yeah, exactly. Fort Irwin, California, out in the middle of the desert out in California. Not a fun place to live. Yeah, so we have some pretty bad places, but we also have an opportunity to live in places like Germany. Yeah. My last time here, we lived in stairwell housing, so kind of like an apartment, and you could sit out on a fire escape and you could look across the street and you could see the Rhine River. We could walk across the street,
awesome.
ride our bikes, or go for a hike up and down the river. So there's great places like that. Where I am now, I can jump in the car and in about 4 hours I'm in Munich, or I'm in Nuremberg. I can go to the Hofbrauhaus in Munich. About 4.5 hours from Paris if I wanted to drive down to Paris. So that's cool. Catch a flight up to London. Whatever we want to go do.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That is
cool. You can go to Paris and then just take the what is it, the channel, right? The train that goes to London right there. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
You got lots of opportunities where you are. And that, that's what thing, being in Texas, I saw a map overlaying Texas with the European countries. Did you see that, Noel?
Yeah.
Have you seen that? Where like Texas is like 90% of Europe. It's like crazy.
Seriously?
So that's awesome though. It gives you lots of opportunities to experience culture. It gives you lots of opportunities to just let your kids see just how amazing this world is, and again, that is, as Americans, sometimes we lose sight of how fascinating these other places are. We got to go to Paris and got to see that, my wife and I, a couple of years ago, and it's just an amazing place to just sit back and see the culture evolve around you, or not evolve, but it just happen around you, I guess you should say. It's just and I'm sure Germany is no exception. So that's great.
Yeah, we actually.
So when are they?
We actually had the opportunity. So when we found out we were coming to Germany, we were super excited because we thought I was going to go to Korea instead of Germany. Germany wasn't even really on the plate of options that I thought I was going to be able to go to. And so when I got the assignment notification saying, hey, I was going to come do this particular job in Germany, even though it's a job that I've turned down a few other times over the last year, because it's a painful job and it can mean a lot of late hours, time away from family and stuff. But by taking that job here in Germany, it meant I got to bring the kids to Germany. They got to experience life in this country, another continent. Just have all those types of experiences. So we thought, hey, it's worth it. Let's do it. But
that's cool.
I think I would choose Germany over Korea too.
Yeah, especially when at the time when I thought I was going to Korea was when we all thought we were about to go to war.
Yeah, that was. I remember that because that was right around the time that things were pretty tense.
Yeah, no kidding. Good grief.
Yeah, Germany sure sounds great.
Absolutely.
I'm there. So tell us a little bit about what your role is. What is it that you? As much as you can. I know that there's privacy things that you can do, but tell us a little bit about your activity. What is it that you're doing there?
So right now I'm the second in command of an Army Air Missile Defense Command. It's about a little over 900 folks, and we are responsible for the air missile defense operations and things like that in Europe for the U.S. So as part of that, we also engage with our allies and partner nations that are over here as well. Trying to help help them as they build their air and missile defenses, and then two, get it to where we can work better together, so that if we ever do go to war, that we can actually talk to each other. We know how each other fight. We just can work much better together. There's always efficiencies to be found in numbers. So those are some of the things that we do as far as, kind of big hand, little map type things. And then of course there's all the administrative actions and the personnel actions and things like that. For instance, next year, our command is going to be a 1-star commander instead of an 06. Instead of a full bird colonel, it'll be a 1-star brigadier general. And so with that comes growth in staff, growth in numbers, different things like that. And so, those types of administrative actions take planning and coordination with the Human Resources Command, with other units, with how much ground do we have, how many buildings do we own, do we have enough office space. So everything from do we have enough office space and this soldier got in trouble on the weekend, all the way up to how are we engaging with the Dutch and the Germans in different exercises? How are we growing our collaborative efforts with the Estonians or the Lithuanians or whoever?
Wow, that's cool.
So it's kind of a broad range of what I do now.
So, Todd, I'm curious, what's some of the coolest experiences you had? I'd like to know, have you driven a tank, that type of stuff? But, what's some of your favorite memories, I guess, of your 19 years of service?
So when I first came in the Army, when I was here 18 years ago, I was a Bradley Stinger fighting vehicle platoon leader. So I was riding around in Bradley fighting vehicles. Nice. It was a lot of fun shooting guns and doing things like that. So those are, it's kind of interesting. So when you think about what's the most fun thing you've done, it kind of depends, I guess. Because there's always fun to get out and get dirty, run around in the mud and the muck. Say you go back and tell people, hey, I haven't slept in 3 days, and yell at them for a little bit. But it's also, it's always fun to shoot guns, no matter where you are, what you're doing. That's always fun. But there's also a lot of, you can always find joy and be happy, whenever you present awards. So Thursday, we had a formation, and the boss is out of town, so I was filling in his shoes. We got to present awards to a couple of guys that are leaving. So that's always fun to recognize someone's hard work. When you get to promote someone, that's fun. When you re-enlist someone who decided to stay in the Army, those types of things are fun too. So it's kind of, no kidding, true story. There I was. I was in Baghdad in 2003, and I was walking somewhere, and I see this Humvee, and in the back of the Humvee were a bunch of my old soldiers, and they were like, yelling and screaming at me and stuff like that, hooting and hollering. They had some expletives to say. This is a family show, so we won't say exactly what they said, but it was all about how they were getting out. They were done with the Army, getting out, going on to do other things, and then it was good for them. They signed up, they did their time, they did great work while they were in, and then no kidding, probably 4 years later, something like that, maybe a few years after that. Anyway, so several years later, I'm at Fort Bliss, Texas, and I see 3 of them, and they're all, they were E4 specialists, and now they're sergeant first classes and staff sergeants doing great and wonderful things in the Army. Still as non-commissioned officers, leading soldiers, and still in. So, things like that kind of they make you happy when you see your soldiers doing great things years later.
Yeah, that's cool. And you were in the Iraq War, of course, weren't you, Todd?
Yeah. So I was in Baghdad in 2003, deployed to 1st Armored Division.
Okay.
We went to Kuwait for about a little bit of time while we brought in the rest of the division, and then actually had to catch a helicopter from Kuwait up to Baghdad because we'd sent all the military vehicles forward. And then, so I was there for about 8 months, 7 months, something like that in Baghdad. And then I went back to Iraq in 2007 to 2008, where I lived on an Iraqi FOB on what we called a military transition team. We were advising the Iraqi army that we had kind of rebuilt after we unbuilt them, we'll say. So we So I was advising those guys for about a year, and that was it was on an Iraqi fob between Mosul and the Syrian border, north of Tal Afar. So right around the Sinjar Mountain, where you may have remembered a few years ago, I think in 2014 or so, 2014, 2015, ISIS had all those Yazidis trapped up on the mountain and started killing all of them. But anyway, so it was that area. And then I went to Kuwait as a battalion executive officer in 2013 to 2014.
Todd, I've got a couple of questions for you related to the issue of PTSD, and I've seen several movies about this kind of reenactments of issues related to PTSD and troops coming home from deployments, multiple deployments, combat deployments, and just the effects that you kind of mentioned earlier about reintegration. And I mean, obviously, in the civilian side, we don't really have to think about those types of things. But I was just wondering if you could kind of talk a little bit about any experiences that you've had with that, particular issue yourself, or with, or that you've known other soldiers that have had issues with that, and kind of give the insider's perspective on that issue, just in general, if you could, please.
Yeah. So PTSD, it's obviously it's a real thing, and I think at the beginning of this, this conflict, the war on terrorism, there was a stigma associated with some of those, whether it was PTSD or other mental health problems that folks faced. Almost seen as weakness, or not strong enough, can't mentally handle it, I'm not resilient enough. But I think over years we have started to get away from that stigma. It's become much more, I don't want to say accepted, it's not the right answer, not the right word, but it's okay for people to acknowledge that they have a mental health issue, whether it's PTSD or something else. It's out there. It's alive. It's and it affects people. And deployments will affect people in different ways. Two people can have the exact same experience and come home and be different from it. They can respond to it differently. So it's not going to be the same for any two people. So there's some folks out there that they've had some very traumatic experiences. I've known some folks who went through some very, very, very traumatic experiences, to the point where the soldier and his wife couldn't even sleep in the same room, because he would wake up every night and scream someone's name. And have some pretty vivid and bad dreams. I've known people who just the stress of when you drive outside the wire, just that stress and the anticipation of what's going to happen next. Is it going to be my day today? That can have a negative impact on someone. It can affect them. So when they get back, you have to go see the right people. You have to go see the psychiatrist or the behavioral health specialist, whoever it is. Just sometimes for some people, it's just talking to someone about it. That can make all the difference. For other people, it requires medication. We have people, in my unit right now that have PTSD. But you wouldn't know it from your daily interactions with them. And sometimes, and I've been in previous units where you can kind of see where perhaps the PTSD is having an effect on them. And you can talk to them about it. I've sat down with folks before and said, "Hey, man, tell me what happened. Have you gone to the behavioral health folks yet? Have you talked to them yet? Have you told them about this?" Because for some people, it's not just what they've experienced in the military, but it's also some things that they experienced in their personal life.
Right.
And it can happen to anyone. So, it happens to people who've been in car wrecks. It happens to people who've been in hurricanes, and lost everything, or lost people, or whatever the case may be. Any type of traumatic event. And I think the important thing, though, is that people are going to seek help. Whether it's whether they require medicine to cope, or if they can just cope through talking in groups, or whatever the case may be. Just as long as they're seeking whatever help they need to get, that's the important thing, I think.
you think it's gotten any better since? Seems like that lately there's been the last few years, I guess, a lot more discussion and stuff about it. Do you think things have improved, or you think it's about the same or worse, or
Well,
in terms of awareness of it and getting help for it and things like that?
Oh, I think it's much better.
Okay.
I think it's much better. I think there's much more accepting. There's a much more accepting population within the military, at least, for people who have PTSD.
Yeah.
It's not, again, it doesn't have the same stigma that it used to. That it, someone who has PTSD or is having flashbacks or whatever the case may be, whatever the symptoms are, those people are no longer seen as less resilient.
Yeah.
Right? They're just seen as, hey, they just need an additional piece of help that we have available to us. So let them go see it.
Yeah.
Now, I will say that I have had in the past, I had a soldier who was claiming PTSD. And he was so this was probably 2005 or 6, somewhere in there. Anyway, so he was claiming PTSD from the same deployment that I was on, but he was in a different battalion, a different unit. And which is fine. I mean, I don't know what his experiences were. But to close out his packet for his medical discharge, to get his benefits and everything, we had to get a statement from someone who was in his unit. Well, his story was he couldn't find anyone that was in his unit that could verify. Well, it turns out that I used to drink beer with his commander at the time. And my wife and his wife used to go out and go shopping and drink wine with all the other ladies and stuff like that. We happened to know each other. And so I sent him an email. And he couldn't even remember this kid. But he said, hey, I think it's probably belonged to this other sergeant. And so he forwarded the email to that guy, who quickly responded back with, hey, that guy doesn't have PTSD. Whatever he's telling you is a load of garbage. He used different words. And he had a few other descriptors for the soldier. And so I contacted the mental health provider who had been seeing this kid, who was upset because I was contacting him, and apparently I had read some stuff, from his clinical notes that I wasn't supposed to have read. But it turns out that this soldier, he said, why is he still in the Army? Isn't he out by now? To which my response was, no, he's not. He's still in the Army. So to make a short story long, he turns out that this kid had not been going to the behavioral health for a while because the doctor thought he was out of the Army.
Oh, wow.
But he'd given his doctor such a load of garbage that the doctor's like, hey, there's no way this kid should be even functional right now, socially functional without his medicine.
Wow.
And if he hasn't come to see me or any other health provider, he doesn't have his medicine, so he shouldn't be functional right now.
Wow.
So there's some folks out there that are like that. Unfortunately, they'll try to milk the system. They'll try to fake injuries or fake mental health stuff, and that detracts from those who really need it.
Yeah, that's too bad. That's too bad. But I'm encouraged, I guess, to hear that there's some improvement in the situation. Sounds like it's it's good that it's being discussed. It's good that some of the stigma is kind of not as so much as a stigma as it used to be. So, but I appreciate that insider's perspective on it, Todd.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Todd, one thing I'm curious about, for those of us here hosting the show and the listeners back home, what can we do to support the troops? And from a public perspective, it appears that the war on terror is not going to end anytime soon, and it's going to require a long-term commitment to military operations over there. And what can we do here at home, stateside, to help support our troops?
Well, that's that's an interesting question. So my initial thoughts go back to some of my deployments where we get care packages and things like that. And, we had this one lady who would write to us, and we called her the typewriter lady because she would always type her letters on this typewriter. And she made a big deal about how it was an old school typewriter, not a computer. And I can just imagine this little old lady sitting in a nursing home somewhere. She was hilarious. Letters like that, those help for morale. The care packages and stuff, though, at this point in time, everything is so set. people have access to anything that they would possibly need. I think really the biggest support that people can have is to interact and engage with the politicians or with policymakers, just to make sure that benefits are taken care of, that soldiers, when they come home, their benefits are taken care of, their entitlements, things that they've earned are secure, stable, and they can be counted on, that they don't lose any of those types of benefits, things like that, so for instance, sequestration, budgetary constraints, those have a huge impact, so just, riding your congressman, getting on his back about, hey, pass a budget, things like that, honestly, would be more beneficial than sending a care package with Pop-Tarts and beef jerky. As much as we all like Pop-Tarts and beef jerky, but
especially together.
Someone could, yeah, exactly. That's a meal. You got protein, you got your dessert, you got fruit.
And dessert.
Yeah, it's awesome. Yeah, the frosted layer, that's the dessert part. It's filled with fruit. That's your fruit. Yeah. I'm sure there's some flour, there's some milk in the crust of the thing. That's like,
it's got everything.
Yeah, that's like chocolate cake.
That's right.
Yeah. What were we talking about?
It's a wedding feast in Louisiana. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about beef jerky and Pop-Tarts now.
That's right.
I've been buying the wrong stuff at the commissary.
Yeah. Guys, I'll be right back. I got to go get some. I'm kidding. Oh, man. So
supporting
the troops, the care packages.
Care packages.
Yeah, I think probably the biggest support would just be engaging the politicians, engaging the Congress people about making sure things like the budget are passed. Simple things like that. I say simple things. It's not a simple thing. Those are
it's important things.
Yeah, definitely.
Yes,
definitely.
Yeah. Well, hey, so when your wife comes in, does she have a lot of girlfriends to hang out with? Is there people that she gets a support group with too?
So you guys know my wife.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes,
she's not going to have a problem.
So does she? She's never met a stranger. So, but there seems to be. I've seen some of our other friends who have spouses in the military. Seems like a pretty a tight knit group of spouses there too. Is that the same that you guys experience?
Yeah. So it kind of depends on where you are. So in the Army, we have what we call family readiness groups, and that's it's an organization for the spouses to come together, try to get everyone together, kind of build a cohesion and build a support base. Not that people need a lot of support, but just kind of have some friends to hang out with, some people with some common interests and common things that they're going through, if you will. I don't want to say struggles, but just some commonalities. In some places it's viewed as a clique, if you will. As a stigma, as just where people come together and they gossip about other people. And really, I really haven't actually seen that to be the truth in any of the units I've been in the last 19 years, over the 10 or 11 duty stations. But some people still think that, and that's okay. They can think that. But what we've noticed is that here in Germany, oftentimes there's a tighter knit group of spouses, because you can't just go out to all your neighbors and hang out with them if you don't want to hang out with Army people. So yeah, I think we're here in Germany at least our last time here, it definitely proved to be true that the spouses tended to do more things together. They would go on trips together. They organize trips. They go to different countries. I think my wife went to a few more countries than I did last time we were here.
So that sounds like she might have a chance to go explore a little bit while you're working. That's a good thing. Yeah. Speaking of wives, my my wife was telling me, she went over to one of her girlfriends the other day. Said she told her girlfriend that she drew her eyebrows too high. She seemed surprised.
Yeah.
I always like how Keith laughs at the beginning of his jokes.
It's like kind of like my subtle cue that it's time. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, what you got?
Yeah, speaking of Germany, I deleted all the phone numbers of all the Germans in my on my mobile phone
Why?
to make it Hans free. That was appropriate.
Oh, that's a good one. Hey guys, what do Eskimos get when they sit on a block of ice too long?
This is appropriate for you, Steve. Let's think.
Is this the Uranus joke?
Let's
I'm talking
Let's
the same
hear it.
region. Polaroids.
Teenage correspondent ran back in the room. He's got
That's
one.
good
He's
stuff.
got one.
That's funny.
All right, teenage correspondent, fire away. Your turn.
All right, someone stole my mood ring. I don't know how I feel about it.
Oh, kids these days.
That's so bad. I've got one more. I've got to go. You know, a woman walks into a library and asks if they had any books about paranoia. The librarian said, "Yeah, they're right behind you." Come on, that was a good one.
I'm laughing.
Good, but so
That's the segment, man. It's supposed to be that way.
It is. It is.
Todd, you got one for us?
Being over here in Germany, you start looking at castles and you start thinking about, the Knights of the Round Table type stuff, even though I went in Germany, that was up in, wherever, England or Ireland or Scotland, whatever, one of those other places. But it got me thinking, because tables are typically, long, but who was the guy that invented King Arthur's Round Table?
Mm-hmm.
Circumference.
I have not. Yeah, man, that's a good one. That sounds like something we should have known, but that's good.
I know it.
Yeah. Hey, Todd, if you could send me the link to that joke page.
Yeah, right. Some original ones, man. We need that. So I like the Polaroids, though, Steve. That was pretty good.
Yeah, thank you.
Hey, listen. Any last thoughts, Todd? Again, thank you so much, and we appreciate everything you do and every sacrifice that your family makes. We thank the world of all of you. We've known you for, 25 years, and we love you, man. We miss you, and I hope I get to see you guys in December. But if any last thoughts or comments for you, Todd?
Hey, again, just thanks for having me on. This is fun. Definitely have to do it again.
Definitely,
absolutely. And sadly, you have the best internet of all of us, so thank you.
We just kind of I do what I can.
Really.
Yeah.
Any last thoughts, Noel, Steve?
No, I
Go
ahead.
Yeah, I really want to make sure that Todd, thank you for your service. Almost 2 decades of showing your commitment to our country. We appreciate that, and everybody listening should appreciate that as well. And I know we pray for you a lot and worry about you, and hope that you and the rest of your military friends out there are well taken care of, and hope you have a great 4th of July, and thanks again for your service.
Yeah. And on top of that, to our listeners, we know there is a lot of crazy things going on in our country right now. There is polarization like there's never been before. You open Facebook and you know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is this: we have the best country in the world with the best protectors in the world. And there's no doubt about that. And there is a reason why we are free to be polarized. And there is a reason why we are free to disagree with one another. My only ask is do it with grace, do it with pride about your country and yourself. And thank you for being awesome Americans and truly understanding how powerful your voice can be. But make sure you use that voice constructively for our country and honor what we have in our history. Y'all feel that same way?
Absolutely. Couldn't say it any better. So.
And I got to say is we live in the best country in the world in the United States. And thank you to all of us as citizens and all of our military for protecting us. And I guess that's where I'm going to end up. So who wants to sign us out?
Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. I'll start us.
Well, happy 4th of July to everybody. Hope you have a safe and happy holiday. enjoy time with your friends, but don't forget about all of our great military servicemen and women overseas and here stateside, and be thankful to them, and also be thankful for a great country. So everybody have a great week, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Thanks, everybody.
Hey, thanks again for listening to The Testosterone Zone. We sure had a blast visiting with you. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe, leave us some feedback, and don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram.
All Testosterone podcast episodes are written and produced by Noel, Keith, and Steve unless otherwise noted.
The opinions expressed in the Testosterone podcast are our own and not those of our employers, families, parents, kids, dogs, cats, your mom, or any other entity Noel, Keith, or Steve are affiliated with now, in the past, or in the future, or ever.